Hello there, and welcome to today's review. Area 51, not the arcade one, is a game that I've wanted to play since I was 8 years old. I guess I just never got around to it until now. Initially, I couldn't play it because of the mature rating, but afterwards, I guess I just forgot about it. Despite that though, I can still vividly recall my amazement when I saw the trailer online as a kid. It was very mysterious and eerie and unlike anything I'd really seen up to that point. So, as I just recently purchased a PS2, I figured I'd play it and give it a review just to see if it was worth getting excited over as a kid. And also just to see how it holds up today. But before we get into the review, let's get some of the basics out of the way. Area 51 is a first-person shooter game developed by Midway Studios Austin and published by Midway. The game was released in 2005 for the Xbox, Microsoft Windows, and for the PlayStation 2, which is the version I'm reviewing. According to Wikipedia, Area 51 is a loose remake of the 1995 arcade game of the same name, though I'm fairly certain that this was done for extra publicity and for the name recognition. There is a sequel to the game as well, called Black Site Area 51, but I think it's more of a spiritual successor or maybe a reboot, and I have played it before, but I can't remember a thing about it, so it might still make for a good review later on. Okay, let's get into the real review now. Let's start off with the graphics and the presentation of the game. Visually, Area 51 certainly isn't the worst thing you'll find on the PS2, but for 2005 I did find it to be lacking in a few areas, most notably the brightness. It's certainly not uncommon for a PS2 game to lack a brightness slider in the options menu, but in 2005 I feel like it was getting to be more commonplace. I could be wrong though. Everything is just way too dark, and it's not in an atmospheric way, it's more in an I can't see jack shit way. You are equipped with a flashlight in-game, but it's pretty piss poor. Some alliteration for you there. At one point, I even resorted to turning up the brightness on my TV to try and remedy this, but it just made all the colors too washed out to be sensible. Luckily, the darkness doesn't render the game unplayable, it's mostly just a minor nuisance that can occasionally cause some issues. But this had to be my biggest visual complaint. Since this is a PS2 game without a 480p option, the game runs in 480i, which obviously doesn't automatically appeal to those used to the HD visuals of today. Personally, I got used to the resolution fairly quickly, but that's probably because I've been playing a lot of PS2 lately. Even if you aren't like me, I'm sure that your eyes will acclimate to the resolution fairly quickly, and it shouldn't be a huge issue if you know what you're getting into. There is of course also the PC version, which I'm assuming is best for those that want the best possible video quality. In terms of straight up texture quality, this is certainly not the best looking game of 2005. Games like Resident Evil 4, Shadow of the Colossus, and Fear make Area 51 look quite drab in comparison. However, I do feel that the art style helps this game make up for this a little bit. I really enjoyed the design of all the different environments in the game, like the ruined laboratories, underground caves, and later on the more alien areas. They all have a certain artistic flair to them that makes up for the nasty texture quality a little bit. I also found that the character models and enemies all looked really good for the time, and the enemy design was pretty well done. Personally, I enjoyed the visuals and found them to be almost charming in a way, though I doubt this is the most popular opinion. Before we move on though, since we're talking about the presentation, I pretty much have to mention the voice cast of this game because it was a big deal at the time. Actor David Duchovny voices the game's protagonist, Ethan Cole, and Powers Booth plays some kind of military guy who's not very prevalent in the game. Duchovny's performance feels very phoned in, and it honestly sounds like he kinda hated doing this.
The scientists who work at Dreamland are rumored to be some of the most brilliant minds in the world. They must have seen everything.
Even when talking about horrible or sad events, he just has this same monotone delivery.
World annihilation. Is that what we deserve? I don't think so.
It's not an outright terrible performance, but it's certainly not good, and that's coming from an X-Files fan. Also, Marilyn Manson's inclusion in this game is a decision that really doesn't hold up, considering recently revealed information. His character is super annoying and overacted anyways.
Purpose. To extract the virus from within me. Used to corrupt your kind and mine.
That guy. Alright, now let's talk about this game's weird-ass story. As I briefly mentioned before, you play as a guy named Ethan Cole, an operative in Hazmat Team Delta, who are sent in to clean up an outbreak of some kind of alien virus in Area 51. Cole eventually gets infected by the virus himself, but is able to switch between being a human and an infected monster at will for whatever reason. Much of the game is spent trying to unmonster yourself or follow orders from your Hazmat Team commander. Sometimes you just kinda do random shit though for no discernible reason. I'm gonna be honest here, this story is presented pretty terribly. There are some cutscenes and scripted events, but none of them do the greatest job of explaining what the hell is going on here. Presumably more is revealed from these documents you can scan during gameplay, but to read them you have to go back to the main menu screen, something that I didn't do a single time because I don't give a shit. This is basically what I was talking about in my Fear review when I said that most games make you pause and go into a menu screen to listen to audio logs or read something. But in this game you can't even do that. I also praised Fear for those audio logs because it was all supplemental to the main storyline, meaning that you can easily go through the whole game without stopping to listen to a single message and still have a pretty damn solid idea of what's going on. But in Area 51, I have no clue what's going on, and honestly I'm not sure if the additional information would help me either. If you got through this game and understood what was going on, then I applaud you, and please let me know, because you're clearly smarter than me. This was probably the most disappointing thing about the game for me, because as a kid I was really interested in how mysterious the game looked and I wanted to know what the deal was with the alien virus and the various secrets that might be held in a facility like Area 51. Instead, I got some stupid bullshit about the Illuminati and LOL, the moon landing was fake, LOL, the government is hiding so much from us, LOL. Did f***ing Alex Jones write this shit?
Come on, you're not an intellectual. You're a fake and a fraud.
I should probably move on now. This stuff makes me too upset. Let's talk about the gameplay now, see if it can make up for the story's BS. Luckily, the gameplay fares much better than the story does, but it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's important to note that this game is from a time before FPS games had a more or less standardized control scheme that every game now follows. This means that you will probably have to override your muscle memory if you've been playing more recent games, because the button layout will be completely different here. This isn't really a flaw with the game, but it's important to mention for those who are thinking of checking it out. At this time, FPS games were a lot more clunky to control also. Stuff like aiming and even basic movement just feels really f***ed up in comparison to modern games. Area 51 does actually fare a bit better in this department though than earlier PS2 FPS games. The aiming isn't quite as restrictive or difficult to use as in a game like the original Killzone, for example. This general clunkiness is something that you can kind of get used to with time, but it will always cause some issues, especially when it comes to aiming. This is also not really the game's fault, but since this is the oldest game I've talked about thus far, felt it was important to mention. So, disregarding PS2 jankiness, how is the combat in this game? Well, you'll certainly be doing a lot of it. Let's talk about the weaponry first. Area 51 has a modest yet effective arsenal of weapons for the player to utilize, starting out with a handgun and assault rifle that function pretty much how you would expect, and moving on to some strange alien weapons towards the end. The weapons all feel pretty impactful and they look good too. The sounds are a little underwhelming, but that's something I can overlook. Also, the assault rifles in particular tend to cause the screen to have a seizure, which I was able to get used to, but I wouldn't be surprised if it really annoyed some people. Another weird thing about the weapons is that if you have an assault rifle or shotgun equipped and you walk over another one, you will automatically start dual wielding and there's no way to stop until you run out of ammo. I just think it's weird that it doesn't give you a choice or give you a way to drop one. Sure, the weapons deal more damage when you have to, but it makes them substantially less accurate, so it can be quite annoying when you aren't intending for it. My favorite weapon by far has to be this ripoff of the Needler from Halo that kills pretty much every enemy in one burst. It's really fun to just go through a room of enemies and destroy them all within seconds. The damn thing also automatically recharges its ammo, meaning that you can literally never run out. The only things keeping it from being completely overpowered are that it isn't very good for long-range targets, and also the enemies that run straight at you will explode you too if you shoot them with it. I think this was a good way to balance it, honestly, so that you're kind of forced to use the other weapons instead of using the Needler ripoff the entire time. The worst weapon has to be the sniper rifle, which is made useless due to the clunkiness of aiming. There's rarely an enemy far enough away to justify using it anyways. Other than that though, every weapon is pretty effective and you have plenty of options in combat despite the relatively small arsenal. After you're infected with the alien virus early in the game, you're given the ability to transform from human to alien monster guy at will, but you can only do so for a limited time. While infected, you have a ranged attack that replenishes your health when it hits enemies, but each time you use it, your meter that determines how long you could stay infected depletes. But you also have a melee attack that replenishes your meter when you use it. It's a well-balanced mode, and it works really smoothly in combat when you need to regain some health or just want to punch some dudes. Your other option for regaining health is finding health packs that are scattered quite liberally throughout most levels. With the combination of these two health acquisition methods, I felt that the non-regenerating health system actually worked well in this game. Take notes, Sniper Ghost Warrior. Don't get too comfortable though, because I did have one more problem with the gameplay. Let's talk about the enemy types. At the beginning of the game, you pretty much exclusively fight people who have been infected with the alien virus that you were sent to contain. Their only attack consists of running straight towards you and punching you, which gets old pretty fast. The only other enemies early in the game are these little spider-like guys who are a total ripoff of the flood spores from Halo. They as well just run straight towards you and get shot. A little later on, you're introduced to these blue soldier guys with guns who really like throwing grenades, and they're the enemy that you end up fighting the most throughout the game. Unfortunately, they aren't all that interesting. The only real challenge these guys offer is their insanely precise accuracy. Their bullets will hit you at least 90% of the time, I swear, which can be really annoying, but the don't even take cover, so you can take them down pretty easily. If these blue guys had as much depth as the replicas from Fear, the Combine from Half-Life 2, or even the soldiers from the original Half-Life, I wouldn't mind fighting them for the entirety of the game. But they just f***ing stand there. It would be fine if the soldiers were mixed in with other enemies, like the infected guys, but I'm pretty sure that happens like once or twice in the entire game. If you think about what makes the combat in a game like Halo so great, it has a lot to do with the unique balance of the different enemy types and their weaknesses and their attacks. Since Area 51's enemies lack the intelligence or complexity of those from Fear, and the variety of the ones from Halo, the combat can end up feeling quite bland. That's not to say that it's terrible, as the various options that the player has can make it interesting enough. It's just that if there was more enemy variety, I feel like I would have enjoyed this game substantially more. There is another enemy type that I neglected to mention, which is the actual aliens like the one you see on the front cover. You only see these guys within the last hour or 45 minutes of the game, and all they do is spawn blue soldier guys until you kill them. So let's just say they don't help matters. It may seem as though I really hated this game or didn't like it at all, but that's pretty far from the truth. It's a very short experience. I think it took me around 4 to 5 hours to complete. So a lot of the issues that I mentioned before don't really have the time to develop into truly game-ruining problems. For example, the combat may be repetitive, but you only really fight the same enemies for like an hour and a half each, so the encounters don't become too annoying or unfun. I had enough options in combat that I found myself having fun for the most part, even if the enemies were about as smart as a door handle. The story was pretty much unforgivable though. So, what did critics think of Area 51? Well, the PS2 version received a respectable 75% on Metacritic, which is definitely more than I would give it. I'd probably give it 60 to 65% if I had to rate it. But honestly, I can see how critics would enjoy this when it came out. There wasn't really an oversaturation of FPS games at the time that I know of, And people who didn't own an Xbox probably wanted an Alien game to compete with Halo. Does this game live up to how I thought it would be as a kid? Hell no. But it's an alright experience that I could probably recommend to those like myself who are interested in playing older games that they missed out on. That's pretty much all I've got for the review. If you want to see me review the sequel of this game, Black Site Area 51, feel free to leave me a comment or just leave a like on the video. That's all I really need to know. Also, if you enjoyed the video, a subscription would mean a lot and it would ensure that you don't miss any future uploads. And you could even hit that notification bell if you want to be very sure that you don't miss any future videos. Comments are also pretty helpful as they help with the YouTube algorithm and how much it recommends my videos to others. You could even consider sharing this video with someone else who you think would like it if you want to. Of course, all of this is completely optional. If you want to see some more from me, you can check out the last video I released, which was from a brand new show of mine called Nostalgia Time, where I play games from my childhood and try to determine whether they're still good or not. If not, I'll see you next time, and have a great day. Thank you for watching once again.